Well, hello everyone, and I hope you don't get tired of me saying this. Welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs 2024. Unbelievable how time flies and how many years and how many thousands of interviews we've done. My name again is JDavis, if I didn't say it already, and I'm joined by the guest hostess with the mostest, Marc Z from Marc Z Legal Staffing. Welcome back, Marc.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be here. And Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to our next guest.
Well, healthy New Year is the best
Happy,
year.
healthy, and very prosperous New Year.
Nice. Next guest, who I enjoyed talking to offline, Ethan Davis, partner at Tymann, Davis, and Duffy. TDD.
That's right. Good morning, Jeff. Thanks. Happy New Year. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about Tymann, Davis, and Duffy, and then tell us a little bit about your practice.
Well, Tymann, Davis and Duffy is a litigation boutique that was founded about 4.5 years ago with my partners, Ben Tymann and Mike Duffy. We focus on real estate litigation and business litigation. And my particular focus is on partnership disputes and disputes among shareholders of close corporations. And my partners do a lot of work in real estate litigation and land use litigation.
Wow. And I guess that covers a little bit of your background, but why don't you go a little bit deeper into your background, how you got here?
So I'm very happy to be where I am, which is, a small boutique firm. We've got, there's myself and two partners. We've got an associate, a paralegal, and two staff attorneys as well. And my road to where I am now started at a large firm in New York. So I went to I'm originally from Boston, but I moved to New York after college and went to law school there, and then worked at a large firm called Cravath, Swaine and Moore. And I was always told that my kind of guidance was big firms are a terrific place to get great training, and you can always swim downstream rather than up. Meaning, if you start at a big firm and you decide you like it, you can stay there. But if you don't start at a big firm, it's awfully hard to work at a big firm. So I followed that advice and started at a big firm. But the truth was, I never really wanted to work at a big firm, and while I valued the experience very much, I found that those massive cases and that huge corporate environment was a little bit draining, frankly. So after a couple of years in New York, I moved back to Boston, which had been my plan all along, and continued working at a large firm. Same logic was, hey, once you break into the Boston market, you should work at a large firm. So I was at Goodwin Procter, which was a terrific firm and great training. But again, I could tell after a few years that I wanted to do something on a smaller level. And so I worked at what was then called Sally and Fitch, but is now Fitch Law Partners, which was at the time about a 20-person litigation boutique. And after about 10 years there, I founded Tymann, Davis and Duffy with Mike Duffy and Ben Tymann.
Right.
Yeah, Ethan has really had a great path in terms of doing very sophisticated work, and now he's got two partners that are, again, all from much bigger firms where they can bring sophisticated work, but they're the people who are the go-tos. So I think it's really interesting, Ethan. What I think the work you do obviously a lot of different types of litigation, but one of the big things for our listeners is you do a lot of work with corporate, in the corporate space, corporate litigation, and with all different kinds of businesses, with contract disputes and employment issues. And why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Marc. So a common theme is business litigation, but what does that really mean? And a lot of times, if I'm talking to a non-lawyer, I say it's people really fighting about money and contracts. But so the actual business doesn't necessarily matter, although it is very, very helpful to have at least an understanding of some of the aspects of the business and some of the common themes that arise in different businesses. So, but for what I do a lot of, which is partnership and shareholder disputes, is when small companies are formed, the founders of the company are often consider themselves partners, and they may well be partners. It may be a partnership, or it may be a corporation, or it may be an LLC, a limited liability company. And the corporate form matters, of course, for a number of reasons, but for purposes of what I do, what really matters is that those shareholders, those partners, those members of the LLC are all fiduciaries of each other. They owe each other a fiduciary duty. And a lot of the times they also got together and decided to form businesses together is because they're friends, and they trust each other. And when things go sideways between them, there's often a legal element. You've got the contract between them, but you've also got a very personal element. It can be an upsetting event because you've got people who may have been, in each other's weddings, who have known each other since college, who have been friends for a very, very long time, and for whatever reason, it is not working out. And so sometimes they go after each other hammer and tong, and that's a certain style of litigation. But sometimes there's a lot of caring between them, and just a recognition that they can't make it work. And so what I do is very much like a business divorce. It's trying to figure out a way to get people to resolve their differences as efficiently as possible, and hopefully as amicably as well. But sometimes amicable isn't efficient. But so that's what I do, and that can happen in all kinds of different businesses, whether it's a dental practice or a hotel, a bed and breakfast, or all kinds of different businesses, an accounting firm, financial advisors, any type of business that people can come together and form.
Well, I mean, I can really appreciate what you're doing because I tend to work a lot with privately owned companies and family businesses, and I'm working with leadership. And so many times I go in and I can see the problem before it's happened, or I can see the problem that's gone way too far and it needs an attorney right away.
Mhm.
But too often people are not planning out and figuring out how to stay away from conflict. And I'm sure that's what you see as well.
That's right, Jeff. And actually, one of the things I do at both conflict resolution and conflict avoidance. So when people are thinking about entering into some kind of a partnership or forming a business, a lot of times there's an attorney that represents the business and puts together, the shareholder agreement or the operating agreement, which governs how decisions will be made, for example. And a lot of times I advise people, I don't do really transactional work. Like, I don't do the entity formation or the drafting of that agreement. But what I can do is represent individual partners or shareholders to let them, to guide them and help them understand what's in that shareholder agreement, and perhaps negotiate different terms if they see that, if I see some red flags or likely problems that are on the horizon.
Do you find, since you've been doing, I'm sorry, Marc, did I interrupt you too
Yeah, no,
fast?
what I was also going to piggyback, one of the things I understand you also do, Ethan, is you're like a counselor, that you're not only obviously working things out at the very end, but you also counsel your clients in terms of avoiding a lot of issues that will come up, so you do not
Absolutely.
get to these ends.
Absolutely. And in some ways, business divorce is kind of an apt term, but the sort of, if you will, the marriage that an entity formation is less like an actual marriage because there's not the romance involved. So doing, the equivalent of a prenup, like a shareholder agreement, it makes perfect sense. And so in this context, I do counsel people, make sure you have something in place. And it's kind of like a good fences make good neighbors type of thing, where you can map out how to resolve conflicts in the future. There are going to be conflicts, and if as long as you have kind of a roadmap to how to deal with them, or it'll make things much smoother in the future. And so absolutely, I do. I see that as one of my value adds is counseling people on avoiding conflict.
Excellent. Jeff?
I'm going to go back to one of your earlier statements. I hope it's relevant. And both Marc and I run boutique firms as well, so we can appreciate that choice in life. And I swam from upstream to downstream to where, to my own boutique firm. Some people say I'm still swimming downstream. But do you find that when you're looking at a lot of attorneys that don't have your blue chip background, because I have a very blue chip background, it's hard to believe, that you just see attorneys making the same mistakes all the time for their clients?
I don't know whether I see the exact same mistakes. I guess one of the things that I see is attorneys being needlessly aggressive. So I think sometimes attorneys see their role as being kind of a pit bull, and sometimes you need that. I mean, sometimes that you know, if people are going after each other, hammer and tong, then you need to be extremely aggressive. But sometimes that's a real waste of time, particularly if there's areas of you know where there's common ground. And I've come across this, for example, while in negotiations with somebody with opposing counsel, where I'm just trying to figure out what are the areas of dispute and define the dispute. And they tend to just revert to needlessly arguing. So I guess I would say the more sophisticated attorneys, I think, can recognize when it's time to argue and when it's just time to communicate.
And I just add to that from my perspective as a management consultant, when a client is looking for an attorney and they're emotional, it's easy to find an attorney who will bang their chest and tell them they'll fight for you. And I think that's, clients need to work through their emotions, and attorneys need to not play upon always emotions and give the right answer on things. So I mean, I love what you're having to say. I hope you come back again this year, 2024, and talk to us more about litigation. If someone's looking for you and your firm, how would they find you?
Well, you can find us on the web at tddlegal.com, and hopefully our search engines are working. So if you just search for my name, Ethan Davis, attorney, that's how you can find us. Obviously, we're on LinkedIn as well, but that's the best way to reach us is tddlegal.com. Just give us a call.
Right. Easy name for me to remember. Jeff.
Yeah, I like the Davis.
Yeah, me too. Marc
Davis is from a different mother, right?
Well,
And father.
that's unless I was adopted. I don't know. I think I'm still. I had to say my mother. You got me tongue tied there, Marc. Marc, if someone's looking for you, how would they find you?
Well, first of all, on the wonderful Radio Entrepreneurs website, Jeff, we're there. Also, go to Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C and the letter Z. We come up. MarcZlegal.com, MarcZlegal.com, on LinkedIn, and 617-338-1300.
Oh, that's wonderful. I want to thank both of you for being on Radio Entrepreneurs today, and we will be back with more stories after this break.